Hello, listening people.
Hello.
You're listening to Spit and Polish Presents Pictures Powwow. It's hard not to say Unappreciated Masterpieces on Mystery Box. It's a new show.
You stuttered, but you did it.
Stuttering me.
Pictures Powwow.
Pictures Powwow.
The mystery masterpieces.
So this is our first episode of this.
Al? Who's Al?
Well, I'm Ryan.
Oh, you're Ryan, and I'm Bartek.
And we are spin Polish, likingly, because we are always spitting, and we both happen to be Polish. Isn't that correct, Bartek?
That's right. This is the third show we're doing. Still spitting, still Polish.
Exactly right. And this is a show in which we talk about a movie that's been selected either by us or listeners' choice. And we just talk about the movie. So if you haven't seen the movie that's the topic of the episode, I suggest that you give it a watch, because we are just going to be talking about it in depth. We're just going to go through we're just going to have a general movie discussion about whatever's the movie at hand. Bartek, I do believe for this first episode...
Oh, you're going to talk about the cyclical nature of this show, I believe.
I hope so. I don't know. For this first episode, you were given the task...
Yes.
...of deciding the movie. Mm-hmm. We also decided the title of the show. I mean, we both kind of laughed about it in the update, so we were like, yeah, that's it.
I picked something, and then we're like, actually, the other thing's better.
The other thing's better. It's got alliteration.
Yes.
So, Bartek, you chose this movie. What is the movie we're talking about?
In this first episode, because when I mentioned the cyclical nature, I meant that we have a 3-week cycle for this weekly show. Week 1, I picked the film. Week 2, Ryan. Week 3,
Listening People's Choice. We have quite a list.
So for example, episodes 1, 4, 7, and all that, that's all me.
Yeah.
And this is episode 1, so it's me. And I picked for this episode Cannibal the Musical.
Cannibal the Musical from 1993?
Yes, from 1993, though I think the remastered versions are listed as 1996, but 1993 is when it was made.
Fair enough.
Just like us.
Yeah, just like us. We were made then. Well, we were made in 1992, but born in 1993.
Yeah, I was born in the 5th month, so 9 months prior would have been 1992.
I could have been made in January, because I'm...
September's 9, right?
Yeah.
Oh, like 9/11, I should have remembered.
That's not my birthday, that's my
I know,
father's.
it's not.
So, Bartek, we're doing Cannibal the Musical.
Yes.
You chose this. This is the one that you were like, I want to start this new weekly show by doing Cannibal the Musical. It's a film that's very close to your heart, I imagine, because this is the movie you've chosen to color the character that you are for the listening people and for the show that's about to commence. Bartek, what's the history here? Why this movie? What is this movie? Just tell us everything.
So for a lot of people in this day and age, you might be familiar with South Park, or actually in recent years probably even Book of Mormon, which was made by Trey Parker, and not Book of Mormon, but Matt Stone also worked with him on many of his projects. South Park being the main one. But they all got their start in the 90s when they were in university together, and they made this film, which they called, I believe, Alfred Packer the Musical.
That's right.
But they eventually changed it to Cannibal the Musical.
Because it's catchier.
Yes. So, brief history. Alfred Packer was a man, really well known in Colorado, apparently. That's when Trey and Matt are from Colorado.
The first and only man convicted of cannibalism?
In
Colorado?
I believe so, yeah. And like he did like 7 years time, then a reporter got him on parole, and then he became just a well-known dude in Colorado. And like there's a lot of apparently references to him in like grill bars and like Alfred Packer Day at universities where they eat raw meat or something. I think I looked up online.
Classy.
And basically, this film was Trey and Matt, I think mainly Trey, working on a film during their spring break, I think it was, at university.
Spring break film.
And that always impresses me, like, wow, they're in university and they made this film.
They were like 22, 23 or something like that?
Probably, yeah.
So they decided to take this true life story of a guy, Alfred Packer, and a group of people, they were miners, going across...
Miners, as in they were mining, they weren't young.
Well, one of them was young.
One of them was, I think, underage. Yeah, he was 19.
He was horny.
Yes, he was very horny.
And he looked like Kermit the Frog. So they were traveling to find some new land. They were going to the Colorado Territory. You know this because they say it a million times.
They say the phrase Colorado Territory a million times.
Just so that you know at the end it becomes a state.
Yeah. Basically, there's a gold rush.
There's a gold rush, and they get lost, and they get misled by Alfred Packer because in this interpretation, he's too busy trying to find his missing horse.
His missing horse, which actually has very subtle.
Oh, yeah, we'll get into that.
Allusions.
And basically, everyone dies except for Alfred, and Alfred eats them.
Yes.
To survive, and craziness in the journey ensues.
But that's not how it happened.
But that's not how. That's a direct reference to Star Trek.
Star Trek.
The episode Court Martial. That's a great episode. Like literally, when that happened in the movie, I clapped. I'm like, yep, Star Trek reference, and I will mention it in the episode. It was on my notes. Gotta mention the Star Trek.
It's a really
reference.
good first line, I reckon.
So it's a great opener in the Star Trek episode too. I'd recommend that episode. But Bartek. This is the movie, but what about this movie did you decide we need to talk about this? What's your history with this, man?
Yeah, it's a very interesting one because I think I first watched it when I was in Poland. And generally when I go to Poland, I just stay at my dad's house for a while and just like, it's not so much a vacation where I go to see millions of sights or anything. It's more like live a normal family life in Poland for a few weeks.
Yeah.
And you know when that happens, you know your parent works, so they go out during the day and you're at home. It's like, okay, I'll just.
You're at your dad's place, just faffing about.
I'll find something to do, and at that
count how many toilets are in his house, you know, stuff like that.
I believe there were 3 bathrooms or 4 things to pee in.
Does that include a sink?
Oh god, that adds like 3 more. Out the windows, it's how many windows?
Oh jeez.
Next time I go.
Does it include a bathtub? You can pee in that too.
Around that time, I discovered that the film company Troma, which makes a lot of independent films,
got James Gunn his start.
James Gunn, yes. If you like Guardians of the Galaxy, give a thank you to Troma.
Yeah, I mean Lloyd Kaufman's in the first one.
Yes. Wait, he's in the first Guardians of the Galaxy?
Yes, he is. He's in the background as like one of the prisoners in the sequence where they're in prison. So
I saw it in cinemas, but I didn't know.
He's
that.
there. He's there.
Cool,
yeah.
That's really cool.
So Troma helped eventually pick this up and then kind of distribute it.
Yes.
So you at home, Poland, casually chilling because your dad's got too many toilets, and you were like, "Well, I've got to watch a Troma film in Poland." Is that what's going on?
Around that time, I discovered that there is a Troma YouTube channel, and they have a lot of free films on there. So I thought, let's have a look around at things. And there was one there called Cannibal the Musical. I'm like, oh, that sounds interesting. I like musicals. I'll watch it. And I really enjoyed it. And at this point, I wasn't really familiar with Trey and Matt. I wasn't a South Park fan.
How old were you? Would you say?
It would have been during the drama degree. So I was probably 2012, 2013.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. Later that year, I remember my friends got me into South Park. So and I definitely remember that. Like before that point, I think I watched the Scientology episode once, and I liked it. But yeah, so this is really kind of the first thing that I saw of them. Like I really like their style of comedy. A lot of people would obviously look back on this and see like, oh, later on when they made these movies or when they made South Park, I can see inspiration,
the
progressions. Yeah, but for me, it kind of was a fresh start.
Fair enough. So this was a movie that you found just casually, just trolling through Troma's catalogue of movies
that are freely available. Yeah,
I mean they've got some great movies, man.
Yeah,
I mean Sergeant Kabuki Man.
I watched that one. Yes, but this one and Poultrygeist are probably my top
Toxic
2.
Avenger 4, Citizen Toxie.
You've told me about that one.
Sergeant Kabuki Man's like a drunk asshole villainous lech of a guy, and it's great. But it's Sergeant Kabuki Man, the movie. He's like a hero, and everyone loves him. But
all I remember from that film is a monkey.
So, I remember way more. So, Bartek, Cannibal the Musical, that's your history. My history was, along the years, you gave me a copy, I believe, or you recommended that I should check it out.
I thought you'd already seen it at that point. I remember I lent it to you because you wanted to hear the commentary track.
Yeah, as people would know, we used to do commentary tracks as our podcast, and I'm a huge fan of commentary tracks, and you'll hear about legendary ones over the years, and that was one of the ones I had heard about, but I hadn't actually seen it until it was given to me by you, I think. I was like, I've heard of it, just never checked it out, and you're like, oh, you should check it out, it's good, and I think you gave me a copy, or you sourced me one, and I watched it, and I remembered at the time, I was like, it's okay. It's fine. It's alright. And I haven't watched it since until doing it for this episode. So I watched it last night, and then this morning I was watching the commentary track with it as well, because that is the stuff of legends, and we'll get into that for sure. But this movie, for me, it got better on a second watch. I think one of the things that my relationship with this movie is I don't have a real strong attachment to Trey and Matt as creators. I enjoy their stuff. Team America is one of the greatest films ever made. I'll give them that. One day we'll have to do it on the show. I love Team America, but South Park's a hit or miss for me. I loved it as a kid, like most kids did during that time. It was that ooh kind of show, and it's crappy style and all of that, and the voices. But over the years, I've lost touch with South Park. Every now and then I'll be like, oh, I see a few episodes, and it's like, oh, it's still on. But you discovered Trey and Matt stuff far later on in life.
This decade, yes.
And it's shocking to me because when I think of Trey and Matt stuff, I think of you. You're like the knowledgeable guy out of the people I know who know their stuff. You seem to respect their stuff way more than I do. Like I don't know if you're up to date on South Park, but you're way more up to date on it than I am.
Yeah, I watch it when it comes out in recent years.
But then again, you also didn't see Team America until earlier this year.
That's
and
true.
I was always like, you hadn't seen Team America? That's like their best stuff. But for me, Trey and Matt, I don't know. I have a love-hate relationship with them as creators. I respect them, but also I find them lazy at times. But that's also what I respect about them. It's weird. I have a weird dichotomy with them. And I see this movie, and it's like the prototype of everything that they're going to do. This is a movie that is cheap.
Yes.
It is made for very little money. The quality of the movie is not good. Like, it's very low quality, but that's the charm of the movie, and it's a first-time thing, and it's a student film, and it's a trauma movie as well later on. So that's a part of the appeal, right? But you have terrible sound.
The first courtroom scene, yeah.
I was like, did I get a bad copy or what?
I was watching on my DVD copy, like, oh, I don't remember this.
And you get, not great acting. The comedy's kind of off because they didn't know timing yet. They didn't know how to edit timing. But, like, these are all things that you can forgive because they're first times. But it is interesting that there are these seeds of things that they will blossom into later on, like the really dumb humor.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that as a disparaging thing. That's kind of one of the things I like about Trey and Matt is how dumb their humor is. Like, how blatantly dumb it is. Like, I always remember in South Park, one of my favorite jokes
the
is...
poo-poo?
That's one of them, but the episode where they spoof on Pokemon.
Yeah,
and shoo! That's just so dumb. That is brilliant. And same with Team America with, like, he's going down Crapalapa Street, stuff like that. It's so dumb. It's brilliant. And I respect them because in an age where we have people who think their content is way more intellectual than it needs to be, Seth MacFarlane, you have these dumb humor that thinks it's smart. But then you have Trey and Matt who are doing directly dumb humor in this movie as well. Like the guy just keeps coming back to life.
Yeah.
He's incredibly dumb. But they're doing it with just like such childlike wonderment. Like,
That was and obviously on that year where I first watched Cannibal the musical and later on my friends who have been on our podcast, Nathan Malloy and Stephen Bartlett, they got me into South Park, and I think like within a day or two I started watching, from episode 1. And I was really into the first few seasons where it was like, the main idea was, oh, children aren't just, wide-eyed, innocent. Like they
can be foul. And
they can be foul, there can be a
observant.
darkness to them, and it was also a farcical kind of comedy. And I really enjoyed that. And I know that my friends always told me, like, oh, as the seasons go on, they start, like, ripping stories from the headlines and, like, satirizing them. But I was like, the goofiness of the original seasons kind of, I think, is my favorite part of South Park.
I agree.
Which, I know you agree with that too.
Now, with Cannibal the musical, it's a musical.
Yes, it is.
none of the songs are particularly good, especially knowing where Trey and Matt end up with music in their career, because that's always something that's prevalent in their things. South Park has a lot of songs. South Park the movies are musical.
And I think Trey in
Book
university he majored in, I think, music and Japanese was the trivia I read.
Yes, he does mention that in the commentary track.
All right.
The music's not particularly good. There's maybe like one or two songs that I actually enjoy as like this is a funny song as well as a good song, and then the rest of them are like crap, but they're funny crap. You know what I mean? Like they're not something I'll never listen to this on a playlist of musicals of soundtracks. Like, what songs in this do you enjoy? Especially, you're a big musical fan. Apparently, you've seen Grease and Grease 2.
I've seen both Greases.
You've seen Tommy.
I've seen Tommy. I've seen multiple Bollywood films, which says enough. Because most of them are musicals.
He hasn't seen Rocky Horror Picture Show. That says enough.
I have.
You have?
I have owned it on DVD.
Oh, I thought you
hadn't
seen it.
It's a double feature with Shock Treatment.
Oh, you haven't seen
which
Shock
I haven't
Treatment.
watched.
Now you gotta watch Shock Treatment.
I know one song from Shock Treatment. I like it. The bitching in the kitchen and crying in the bedroom. All
so, Bartek, you're a huge musical fan. Grease. What the musical? Oliver? Sure, why not? Talk about the musical aspects of this movie. Like, what are some you enjoy? What are your feelings about this as a musical?
I quite like all the songs in it, really. There's some that I like more than others. I really love the That's All I'm Asking For song. That's always been one.
Which time?
Well, Ryan, they're very different both times. The first one is obviously more played straight, but also very funny. And the second one is kind of I feel a joke on musicals themselves, because there is no energy. In fact, it's emphasizing the lack of energy, and it's realistic.
It's irony.
It's irony.
Irony. So, all right. So you like them more. What are some of what's like your favorite one or the top favorites? So you got that one. Any others?
That one, I mean, the general sky is blue one is really good.
The heart like a baked potato. Yeah.
I really love how in That's All I'm Asking For, there was the part where Miller, the butcher who can't sing. So he
couldn't sing in real life.
He couldn't sing in real life, so they just had him talk his way, and then everyone gets awkward. Then it just cuts to Trey in this like trance singing his part. It's like he's in a completely different world from like the awkwardness of the other characters. He's very wide-eyed throughout this film.
Yeah, his beautiful eyes. My favorite songs, there's only two that I genuinely love or like.
When I Was on Top of You?
No. I like that in the fact of what it means behind the scenes, but in terms of in the movie, it's pretty good. But genuinely, I liked the Reporter's song. Mm-hmm. Her one. It's a genuinely good song. It's genuinely funny, and it's also a good character song where she changes.
Yeah.
And the hanging song at the end.
That one's
got great choreography. It's got great singing in it, or feels more.
Yeah,
it feels like that was the first one that they recorded when they had a budget, and then
credits,
they were like, "Oh shit, we couldn't do any more."
I noticed in the credits they were like, "Oh yeah, we got the choir from the university.
It feels lavish.
We got choreography from Leanne, and yeah, just a lot of work got put into it. Matt Stone's in drag at one point.
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
That's like the big aspect. This is a musical, and this is a throwback musical to the kind of Roger and Hammerstein old school musicals in which you have songs with a reprise over and over again, but they're slightly different moods. You have musical melodies repeated throughout the movie just to remind you this is the song. The opening credits go for ages because it's an overture of all the songs you're going to hear throughout the movie, which is very Roger and Hammerstein and all of that. So it's that kind of throwback, and that really works well because this story is, it feels like that's the appropriate story to use for that kind of music.
Yeah.
So I think the blending of the style of music and the actual story of the true life thing really work well as the comedic fashion. I think the comedy works pretty well throughout the movie. Oh, also, we gotta love the Build a Snowman song.
17 years before Frozen, I believe it was.
Frozen Stolen.
Yes. How did it go in Frozen? It was like, do you want to build a snowman? We can make him our best friend.
Yeah, it was called copywriting. Bartek, this movie is an odd duck of a movie because for me, this movie's not particularly interesting as its own thing. For me, I find it interesting on a removed perspective of seeing it as who's created it and when it was created, more so than the actual movie. Like I can say that the movie was far more enjoyable knowing what the behind the scenes stuff was, like that they made it during spring break and this is their first thing, and Trey and Matt will go on to do these bigger, better projects, and the flourishment of later on these jokes will kind of be more refined, but also like the fact that they tried to stay accurate to the real life story.
Oh yeah, like how he's building the house in the prison, but it's never brought
or
up.
in the real courthouse. But you wouldn't know that.
Yeah.
Because we're not from Colorado. So, like, all these really... Or, like, there's this one bit where they're having, like, this dream dance sequence. And at the end of it, he screams, Ike! For no reason, because there's, like, apparently a TV movie.
There was a biopic made, like, 13 years prior.
Where where he woke up from a dream and randomly screamed, Ike!
He's making fun of the other Alfred Packers movie.
This movie's more fun on the if you know what's going on in the sphere of the movie's outer world in comparison to the real world. For me, I don't know. Yeah. What about you?
Oh, that's definitely a bonus for me upon rewatching and over the years reading stuff up about it. But when I first watched it, again, it was very blind. It was just, oh, let's watch this. And I just really enjoyed the energy of it. It's sort of like, we've done films on our other podcasts like Thunderpants and Bubble Boy, where it's like an adventure film. They're going from A to B, and along the way, they're encountering really weird things, really weird people.
Neither of those movies had a Cyclops.
Neither of them had a Cyclops. No, I think I read in a trivia point on IMDb that it was partially based upon the Odyssey or something.
Oh, do you think when one of the characters is literally reading the Odyssey and they bump into a Cyclops that has sheep? Yeah, I think so.
Well, it's just that, this film set a long time ago, and that wasn't a first edition copy,
which would have been a lot of money.
Whereas
right?
a film in this decade called Boy Next Door had a first edition one, so it's like, did they mix up which one had which edition?
No, I don't want to crap all over the movie. This is a really fun movie, but this is a movie that really becomes more fun when you dig into the behind-the-scenes stuff.
I definitely love it more knowing all that stuff, but I loved it upon my first viewing, is the thing.
Yeah. I thought it was a fine first viewing for me. I liked the fact that this does feel like a bunch of friends got a camera and some of the university professors and just filmed this weird project about a real life story that one of them was probably studying and was like, I want to do a story or whatever. Like, I like that. Like, I love those types of things. Like, my friends during high school used to make short films, and I've shown them to my friends down here in Melbourne, and it's just like such a joyous experience. And making movies on the fly with no money, budget, or even scripts can be fun. Usually on this show, on our podcast, I've criticized movies of modern Hollywood comedy movies of being purely improvisational, throwing structure away or story beats or character beats because of it's funny. This movie falls into that too. I mean, they improvise a lot. You can clearly tell.
There's one scene where a guy forgets his line and just walks away.
Now, admittedly, I did not know that until reading about it just this morning.
Right.
I thought that was one of the greatest bits. It's like, that's actually a really smart, clever bit. And then I found out it was improvised. And I'm like, okay, I'll give it a pass because it still made me laugh. But this movie gets past that line of my criticism because it is a first-time movie. These aren't professionals yet. And you can understand. And improvisation can be a great tool to use to help benefit your project, your story. Some of the greatest movies have great improvised moments that are iconic. But I don't appreciate these kind of Will Ferrell movies where it's all just put him in a scene and we'll do a million different improvised takes and we'll edit it together in the editing room and make a movie out of it when they're a Hollywood production, proper people who know like that's what I hate. This movie has those elements, but I don't hate it because you got to respect what it is.
Yeah.
Now, Bartek, this movie has a lot of characters.
Yes, it does. For about, I guess, 75% of it, it is that adventure story where it's 6, I think, main people just traveling and you get to know those characters.
Did you have a particular favorite character, big or small, minor or huge?
From that group, the main group, I really like both Packer and... Oh God, I actually like a lot of them. I really like Packer, Belle, and Noon. Which Packer is the main character, Belle is the let's build a snowman guy, and Noon was the young guy.
Yes. Interesting. My favorite character for the whole entire movie, it never got better, was Doom. You're gonna be doomed. Doomed, which is actually Trey Parker dubbing over that guy because he was a terrible actor, but he was like a real life lookalike of.
He was also wide-eyed.
Yeah, he was. He was my favorite, and then for some reason he was the voice of a cat throughout the movie. There was like that black cat. I never understood that. Right? Is that an Odyssey reference? I'm not getting like. There's just that black cat that's just following him around, and he's got his voice going Doom.
I think it was just a general like, oh, black cat is bad luck kind of thing.
Yeah, but it's like following them
on IMDb.
everywhere.
On IMDb, I think that cat had like an actor name.
It's dead now.
Yeah, and it's probably dead.
Probably.
It's been a while, Ryan. It's been a little while. It's almost 30 years.
Probably.
Probably. It had a name. It was like, I think it was a really nice name, like referencing the fact that it's a black cat, but I can't remember.
Doom! I did love that. That was my favorite character, but out of the main crew of people, I actually really enjoyed, which one was the butcher?
Miller.
I enjoyed Miller.
Yeah.
Because he would be me.
Yeah.
I'd be Miller. I'd be very pissed off. I would be very annoyed.
You'd be very fat.
I'd be fat with a pillow belly. Like, I enjoyed him the most, probably.
I just like the whole group because I feel like you get to really know them and they're distinct. Like, I sometimes get Swan and Belle a bit mixed up physically because they're both, like, bearded guys.
Oh, I know how to... also, you did get them mixed up. Swan is the one building the snowman.
Yeah.
You said Belle. Belle's the one that goes crazy, right? Belle's the one that gets gangrene and goes crazy. That's Belle. Swan is the one that builds the snowman.
You're right, because is there any more Swan? Like, that's what
No, here's how I distinctly tell them apart.
Yeah.
Swan looks exactly like filmmaker, writer Joss Whedon. It was very distracting how much Swan reminded me of Joss Whedon. I was like, hey, it's Joss Whedon. Hey, look, it's everybody's favorite Joss Whedon.
It's mainly the names.
I was looking at him and he's like building a snowman and I'm like, man, he's pulling out Buffy right now. Like, he's just sitting there going, it's season 4 of Buffy. This is going to happen. He reminded me of Joss Whedon. I was like, hey, Joss Whedon's there. That's how I could tell him apart from the other one. But the other one also...
It's more so the labeling the names. Like, I could tell, I could go this whole episode being like, oh, when Belle did this, Belle did that, but it's just like, oh, it's Swan, not Belle.
Yeah, for me, I have a hard time remembering all the names because they didn't, for me, maybe they didn't say them enough, or I can't remember what Matt Stone's character was called.
Humphrey.
Humphreys, yeah. God damn you, Humphrey. I enjoyed the Butcher. Yeah, he was fun. They were all fun characters. That's the thing. This is a very fun group of people to follow around. They're all very distinct, like you said. They all have conflicts with one another, but you could also understand...
They all have ambitions.
They all have ambitions. They all have dreams and hopes, but you also understand why they stick with each other throughout the journey. Mm-hmm. Like, you actually can see there's bonds between them, but they don't develop it to an annoying degree. It's just kind of there, you know, like Noon is probably the most likable one in the group.
A little sex, that's all I'm asking
for. That's all he's asking for. He looks like Kermit the Frog.
Was it
in a suit.
Was it Miller that hugged him when he got upset later in the film?
I think so.
Yeah.
I remember they were naked next to each other.
Yeah, that's true.
And he didn't like that he was being.
I'm just thinking that Mr. Miller here is a nice, attractive woman, tall, blonde woman.
There were so many great jokes in this feature film.
Howdy. howdy.
That was literally what I was going to say. That's my favorite joke in the movie.
I think that one gets funnier every time I watch the film.
Because there's that scene in which, where it gets faster with the editing of cutting between them saying howdy, hello, this guy saying howdy. I was actually tempted to say howdy, listening people, at the beginning.
Very early on in the adventure portion of the film, which is like, the middle 70-80%, they enter a general store and every single one of them says howdy to the proprietor, and he says howdy, and every time he says howdy, it cuts to him.
Yeah, it's a pretty great sequence. It's so stupid.
It's stupid, yeah.
I love it.
It's so funny.
Can I tell you another stupid sequence I really liked?
Sure.
There's this scene with the sheriff of, what was it, Sasquatch or whatever? Sawatch. And he has that line that he forgets. We'll get into that in a moment. But after that, Paco, walks away and he sees Leanne, the horse that's been disappeared throughout the whole movie. There it is. And they have, this shot of it. You see, the Leanne's head, right?
Yeah.
And he goes, Leanne! And he's looking right at her and he goes, here you go! And pats. And then it has a hard cut to Leanne, and on Leanne is the trapper, and his two trapper mates are standing right there. And he's he wouldn't be looking right at them. He reacts you trappers! It's so dumb. I don't even think that's an on-purpose joke. I think that's just bad editing, but I just loved it. It was just that's so dumb. It reminds me of...
It's a very movie thing. It has to be this way.
It reminds me of one of my friends' short films that they did in high school. The famous one that I always show to people, Turf Wars.
Yes.
You can watch it on YouTube. Turf Wars, there's a scene where one of my friends, Jack, he's they're in there, it's about two gangs fighting. He's in their base, and he's looking around this corner. He's looking around the corner, and then he turns away and looks to the gang and goes, it's clear. And then literally 2 seconds later, the reporter's head pops out of the corner he was looking at, and with the way that the geography of the real place works and what we've seen in that movie, it means that my friend Jack would have been looking directly at this guy. Directly at him, and he's it's clear. That's how it feels. And that's what I loved about this movie, is it is that charming. Because later on, Matt and Trey, for me, they've become less charming over the years. I don't know, I have this weird relationship with them. I respect them for what they do, but I also have found them a bit annoying and lazy.
I feel like if you watch any creator or creative group for long enough, you get to the point where, early on it did feel like they were working out the kinks, then later on they're a bit more comfortable with where
they're just
they
a machine, right?
Yeah, and it feels a bit more okay, it's on the level.
I've stopped watching South Park for numerous reasons. But one of them is just because, for me, being an Australian from rural Australia, South Park, on basic primal level of dumb comedy, fun, satire, whatever, is good. But I don't give a shit about a lot of the issues they tackle in South Park because they're strictly very American issues.
Or when they reference sports or whatever.
Or very much... Let's think about this. We were talking about South Park early days. It was fun era. And one of the things I find annoying about Trey and Matt now, and this is this doesn't matter to Cannibal the musical, but this is just something I feel, is... They've become the elite. They're rich now, right? And a lot of the issues that they have now in their stories are like first world problem issues that they tackle with them in their ivory towers. While in the early days of South Park, it was more relatable, down on the ground. But modern day South Park, it's oh no, this person's running for president. I'm I don't give a shit.
Yeah, it was more kids being kids, but now president, yeah.
That kind of thing. I don't give a shit about that kind of thing. I give a shit more about, the dumb stuff like Pokemon being a craze or whatever. But then, that's that kind of thing. But in this movie, they're more pure and innocent. They've got their father, everyone's dad is in this movie, basically. The howdy guy is someone's dad in the cast. Or...
the judge is Trey Parker's dad.
He's the only acting role, apparently.
Yes.
And the Randy.
Randy from South Park is based on that judge.
Based on that judge. I mean,
Based on that judge's actor.
Yeah, because that judge existed.
That's true.
Because everything he said in the movie
Dead,
apparently was
dead. And
that was
God have
all.
mercy on your soul.
That's all
Real words,
real
yeah.
words.
Yeah.
His delivery on that line, having God, may God have mercy on your soul.
His smile.
His smile, and just bangs the gavel. What about you? Any particular funny moments other than the howdy moment that stick in your brain? Howdy.
I don't know if you noticed this, Ryan. The Native Americans were
They didn't have a song. That was very, very disappointing. That's actually like my one critique.
Fuck,
Is
I
that
actually
they
never
didn't
thought
give,
of that.
They didn't give them a song. They gave the fucking Fur Trappers one of the most amazing songs what I heard, the Fur Trapper song. But they didn't give the Native Americans a song, which is very disappointing.
Yeah. This is the thing. I don't know if you noticed this, Ryan. You might, if you looked at the teepees, you might have noticed the rising sun on them. They were actually Japanese.
What?
Yeah.
You're kidding me.
The Native Americans actually spoke
Are
Japanese.
you telling me that the chief was a guy that runs a sushi place that was near their college and they had him in the movie so that they could get free sushi for basically a lifetime? Because that's apparently what they say, but I'm shocked to hear that.
I do remember the trivia point that he did run a restaurant and they got him in the film.
Apparently he still runs it.
That's
apparently, cool. At least via when their commentary was. Who knows how long ago that was.
I think it was the 13 years after it was made, so probably 2006.
So go there if you want some. Yeah, I love that. The idea that they're clearly Japanese. Everything they're saying is Japanese. Everything they're signing, like some of their signings
have the rising sun.
Some of their signings are like "We are Japanese," or like the name of their tribe is Japanese.
Nihonjin, yeah.
Isn't it Japanese?
Japanese people,
and it's just like, why is this here? Other than why not?
I think they even use like a Japanese sword.
Oh, yeah. And it's because Trey was studying Japanese, and he was like, I know some Japanese people I could put in this
exchange
movie,
students, yeah.
and I want to get free sushi.
And he once wanted them to say this movie is stupid.
Yeah, and to sign that Christ is dead or something.
Well, that was Matt Stone, yeah.
Oh, that was Matt Stone, right. Yeah, that was... them in that fucking camp learning karate.
We are Indians.
Yeah, teepees. It's so dumb. What about when he teaches him karate so that in the second to third act he could use it, but he has to be reminded with just like this circular still image that doesn't move. Yeah. But the guy's voice is saying, "Don't be a pussy," or whatever it was.
I loved
to remind him that he can do karate.
When he was training with the Nihonjin, just before he found out that the trappers have left the camp, he was like trying to copy one of them, like doing his moves, and the dialogue that the chief was giving was like, "Oh, you're doing a really great job," but Alfred Packer clearly didn't know what he was doing. No,
of course not. Did the guy know? That's the question. No, this movie's an interesting pick, Bartek. I'm not shocked that you picked it, but I am a bit like...
I've expressed my like of it, yeah.
This is an interesting movie. Now, we haven't talked about the horse in the room.
Yes, we've mentioned Leanne, we've mentioned the trappers, but we haven't gone into the subtle subtext that I mentioned earlier.
So, the primary drive of Alfred Packer is that his trustful horse that he's known since childhood and has been his friend... ups and leaves him for a bunch of dirty fur trappers that ride her. And, of course, he goes out of his way and basically gets everyone killed looking for this damn horse.
Yeah, it's strongly implied that the reason why they get lost is because Alfred Packer's going out of his way to find the horse.
I mean, when you say implied, you mean certified. Yeah. And the thing about this movie that makes this interesting is that Leanne is... the horse is a direct reference to Trey Parker's
former fiancé.
Ex-fiancé, who a month before the wedding cheated on him with an a cappella singer.
Oh, it was an a cappella? Oh, I thought it was an accountant.
He became an insurance broker, but he was an a cappella. I listened to the commentary track, dude.
It's been years for me.
It was like they had the wedding all set up, like all the money, everyone had bought their plane tickets to go to this place, everything was booked and she cheated on him, and he's never let it go.
Yeah.
Like Leanne is also in South Park, right? That's
yes, Cartman's
whore mother.
his nymphomaniac mum, yes.
Yeah, right. Who fucks so many guys she doesn't know who Cartman's dad is.
There was a whole big mystery of who his dad is.
Like, a few times they did like a double parter, right?
Yeah, the end of first season, second episode of second season. Because the first episode was a troll episode.
Yeah, because they're dicks. But like, that's interesting, right? Like throughout this movie, he has a whole song dedicated to how he loved being on top of her.
When I Was on Top of You.
When I was on top of you.
Our friend Reese McKenzie, that's his favorite song from the film.
How do you feel about this, right? That let's talk about it realistically, right? I understand that he was very angry and still is at this woman, but not only he has made basically his entire career, or at least half of his career, 2 projects, both like big, of just saying fuck you to this one person. How do you feel?
Who appears in the film.
Yeah, which is devastatingly odd.
Not as really a character, but as a
dancer, right?
As the choreographer and appearing at the front of a choreography.
So, how do you feel about that? Because it's odd, right?
Yeah, I wish I could remember how I felt about it in my initial blind viewing. Like, he's really obsessed with this horse. Like, he has that one line. It's like, no, she's my friend, and friends don't betray each other.
In the commentary track, he's like, I made that whole
one's-
movie just for that one line. I wanted her to be in the cinema to hear that one line. What a bastard. See, for me, I see the humor of it, right?
Yeah, of course.
In this movie in particular, I see the humor of it. This was very recent event for him at the time, right?
Yeah.
And it is amusing that, he goes out of his way to, like, make this known. And in the end, the horse gets brutally murdered. You hear it off screen getting hacked to death, right? It shows how much contempt he has for this woman. But, and the commentary track really elevates this, because he just gets drunk and, like, he's like, you know what she's up to now? She's dating, like, a manager from Walgreens, and I'm worth $8 million. Whoops. Like, I guess I'm the idiot. Good luck in your life, sweetheart. Like, he's just so angry still. Or at least then, when the commentary track was like 13 or what is it? How many years later?
I know that in South Park, the mum is depicted sometimes as a sympathetic character, like
but she's primarily
early
made on because she's a whore.
Early on, the jokes were just like she's a whore and she can't control her son, but she like smiles about everything.
Yeah, the juxtaposition of she's such a sweetheart, but she's a whore.
Yeah.
Right, that thing. It is interesting, but it's also like, this is one of my main problems with them as an everlasting creative content people, right? I do get, like, I wonder, how do you feel about people like Trey and Matt, whose creativity, their creative spark, I at least would say, is frustration, right? Everything that they poke fun at everything that annoys them and frustrates them, and that's like the backbone of what their stuff is all about, right? Like, they don't like religion, we'll do Book of Mormon, or they don't like Scientology, we'll do this. We don't like this thing, I don't like Leanne, so I'll make a whole fucking movie about how I don't like her, under the guise of it being a campy musical, right? How do you feel about creators like that, or that kind of process?
Well, I know that was some of those things you mentioned, like the Mormonism. Mormonism, I think I've heard in some other commentaries, is something that Trey Parker's always had a fascination with, because they're so nice, but their religion is so weird to him.
But yeah, that's still very condescending, though.
Yeah, it's like you said, frustration and anger. There is a lot of like confusion and just like jokiness to it all. It is interesting. I know that with what you mentioned, the Chin Pokemon episode of South Park, that was one where they just didn't get it at all, so they were just making fun of it.
Yeah.
And it is interesting. Like, you get their take on it. There might be some sort of truth to them. Like, when we were growing up, I know for me at least, Pokemon was just like, oh yeah, this is fun, there's so many of them. But their whole episode of South Park was about like the commercial aspect of it.
Yeah, exactly. And the militaristically weird commercial aspect of it. Yeah.
They'll turn you into anime faces.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I find it interesting as a starting off point, but I feel like, and I know that this is not what you should say, but I feel like I wish they would mature, but that's not what they should do either. I just, like, for me, it's so tiring with them and certain others where the backbone, the foundation is frustration the whole time. Like it's after a certain point you get tired of it. Eventually I stopped watching South Park.
Yeah.
But like I also understand the appeal of it. They have a lot more going on, but then also they kind of shoot themselves in the foot at times with being so one track. Like, wasn't it like with the South Park of recent years, they started doing like season-long story arcs?
Yeah,
but they got too focused on their frustration and their annoyance with the politics of the real world that they kind of fucked themselves over of the narrative that they were making. To the point in which now they are like, we will never do one season arc storylines ever. Like, we're only going to do episodic TV. We're never going to go back to that because we didn't predict Trump was going to win.
Yeah, that was the whole thing. They were building up to like, oh, well, Clinton's going to win, so in our narrative, she'll be president or whatever.
Right.
It didn't work out. I think, yeah, last year they said, yeah, we're finally going to do it. There was slight continuity, I think.
I mean, South Park always has continuity, but not like...
But I remember in some of the earlier tracks, the commentary tracks, they were saying like, oh, every end of every episode there's a reset button and like there's not much referencing previous stuff. One
character keeps dying and coming back to life.
Yeah, well, and they came up with a law for that, but generally, yeah, he just does come back. I think they're still doing a bit of continuity stuff. I'll see how it does this year.
I just find them interesting in that regard, like looking at this movie as not the movie itself, but more what it represents as a creative force. Like, this is a launching off point for them.
So what do you think about, I know you said that we'll probably do this in the future, but their hatred towards terrorists in Team America?
Well, yeah, it's more the hatred of Americanism in Team America. Yeah, that's what that's more about. But yeah, we'll get into that one day. But yeah, like, that's something where they also had hatred for the Hollywood elite in that movie. Like, they have a hatred for lots of things. It can be fun, it can be beneficial, but like, how long's been South Park been on for? Like, what?
Since like 96?
Yeah, so like 20-something years, right? Like 23 years or whatever, right?
97, I think it was, actually, yeah.
So it's been a long period of time, and they've grown and they've also shrunk over the years. I'm just curious of where they're going to take their creative force. And looking at this movie, it's always fun to think about that, because this is what they started with. They started with musical, and they've done musicals throughout their whole entire career, which is very fascinating to do, because let's be honest, musicals are not a mainstream popular thing anymore. Let's be honest. It wasn't then when they were doing it.
And even when it was, there's always going to be the people that just don't like them. It's like, why are they singing? That
exactly,
kind of
right?
I think my dad's one of those.
And I find that I respect that they're still keeping true to that in their creative force. And looking at this movie, it is one of those things of, well, they started with that and they're still doing that. That's something I admire about this feature film.
Less than a decade after this film, they were nominated for an Academy Award for Best Original Song.
Exactly. I do want to talk about that drunk guy who plays the sheriff.
Yes,
Now,
the Sawatch guy.
I didn't know he was a drunkard until I listened to the commentary track again this morning, and they're like, "Oh, he's a drunk. He's drunk all the time. That guy, like, he's drunk in this scene, he's drunk in that scene, and that line where he's like, you know what they say, and then
you know what they say about sunrise,
and then long pause." Then walks away.
And you can see, like, because you see the back of Trey Parker's body in that. There's a point where, like, he kind of, like, shakes his head a bit. That's apparently him laughing.
I thought that was genuinely brilliant. And then I find out it's him drunk and he didn't know what to say.
He didn't break character.
Good on him. It reminds me of real life. Bartek knows this. I used to have this job consultant when I was unemployed named Dean. And he talked like this, Ryan, and he was one of those guys who spoke in basically jargon all the time and was always like, I'm your friend, except for I think poorly of you, you piece of shit. Like, hey, Ryan, you did an arts degree. Good on you. But why didn't you do a smart degree? Oh, and he'd always say, you know what they say? And then he would move on. He never finished what that was, and you never understand what he meant. Like, it would just be a normal conversation like, Bartek, you're walking down the street, having a good time. You know what they say. The other day, I was walking down the street, and he would go on to something else, he would derail, he would go somewhere, and that's what this reminded me of. And I'm like, I've enjoyed that in real life, so I enjoyed it in this movie. It's probably the highlight joke other than the howdy. Because that's editing at its max. Anything else you want to touch on with this?
I guess we haven't talked much about the trappers, but I guess it just relates to they're the metaphor for the acapella guy, I guess.
You don't say, do you? Yeah, the trappers were really fun. I liked their song and how terribly they sung it. I liked the main trapper guy, the little one.
Frenchie.
Yeah.
I remember when I showed this movie to a group of my friends many years ago. I think one of this is this group with like Malloy and all that. I remember Malloy especially loved the break right through a wall thing where he like broke a brick wall with his crotch.
Yeah, that was particularly great.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the end.
The end.
So they have the big song and dance.
Hang the Bastard.
And it's like a real musical for a second.
They got a real choir, yeah.
With dancing and choreography and cinematography and good audio. And
the location was good too.
The location was good. They used the sets and the ghost town. It wasn't sets, it was like real little place you can go to. Mm-hmm. It was a great way to end it. And then it got really over the top as it goes along. Like the Japanese guy's there, and they cut off the trapper's head, and it's like a dummy head, and she's there, and it's all ludicrous. And I was like,
the crowd was upset when Packer wasn't hung, but then they were satisfied when the head was cut off.
Yeah, but they were there for blood.
They wanted, yeah.
I liked that. I was genuinely taken aback because I forgot the ending. I forgot that he didn't get executed. I forgot that the real life story. I didn't. This is a story I don't really know outside of this. Yeah. So I forgot that this had like a real ending of him having been released later on, and he lived on.
Yeah, apparently the real Polly Pry, saved him somehow.
Yeah, so I forgot that. So it was a nice, genuine, like, oh, okay. And then it ends with a jump scare. A comedy jump scare.
Oh yeah, we didn't talk about that scene.
You want to talk about the scenes in which he eats people?
Yeah, well, the big build-up was, did Packer actually, cannibalize his group that he was with or not?
Or at least murder them.
Like, I guess.
I mean, he definitely cannibalized them.
Yeah, one of the things we didn't say is that Bell, the actual Bell, not Swan, Bell, the religious guy of the group, his motivation is that, he wants the gold so he can build a church, and it's all for God.
All for God.
All for God.
And of course he goes crazy because he's religious, and Matt and Trey don't like that.
Yeah,
and they're like, "You're dumb."
His arc is that he gets a bit crazier. His foot got trapped in a bear trap early on.
From the trappers,
yeah.
See, it's a nice payoff there.
And there's a point where the other character that I was mixing up with, Swan, actual Swan.
Swanee.
Swan's interesting because throughout the whole film, he's just a really pleasant guy. He's always happy.
Yeah.
And eventually that becomes too much for Belle, and Belle kills him.
Oh yeah, because he keeps singing about that fucking snowman.
Keeps singing about the snowman. And
there's other things that build up, like Humphreys is annoying Belle. They get into a bit of a scuffle, and like it goes on and on.
But that's
and
like the
on.
breaking point with like, oh wow, he crossed a line. So when they're deciding like maybe we should sacrifice someone for real this time, that kind of crosses the line for him, and he murders them when Packer's not around. Allegedly,
because the real life story is like that's what Packer claimed, and they took it for that because they believed that.
And then it led to this scene where Belle and him are basically like, okay, look, we're going to have to work together with this. If I'm going down, you're going down too. And it leads to a fight where Belle basically becomes Rasputin.
He just doesn't die.
He does not die after all this horrible stuff that happens to him.
He gets stabbed in the eye, gets a fucking cleaver in the other eye.
He stops being the character that we knew and just becomes like a non-dying entity.
I kind of loved it. And then he appears at the end, just a jump scare.
They also and they also did other musical gags in that scene too, where you think he's dead. Trey gets into a song where he says like the first 2 words, and you never hear the song because it keeps getting interrupted. We know that it begins with like "Who am I" or something like that.
And then and the movie ends. The movie ends like that, dude. It was pretty wonderful.
Yeah.
I enjoyed this movie on the second time watching. I would say it's a movie definitely worth a watch. It's free on YouTube. It's free to find
on their website, official
on their
website
website, Troma. So I'd give it a watch. It has a brisk pace.
Hmm.
Like, I was shocked to find it was actually an hour and a half. I thought this was like a 75-minute long movie. You know, like
feature length.
Feature length.
Even.
You know, I actually really enjoyed it upon second watch, and it's far more enjoyable once you've also listened to the commentary track. That is something that elevates
a great bonus.
I've
only listened to it once, but I'm definitely going
to
do it
hear
again.
them lose their shit and talk smack about people that are in the movie or worked on the movie, and talk smack about each other, and talking about who slept with who and what happened with Leanne in real life.
Do you remember who specifically was in the commentary track?
It's obviously Trey and Matt. They've got the guy who plays Noon.
Yeah, the young guy. They had the trapper who can't sing, right?
Well, they all couldn't sing.
But the one who especially couldn't, the yo-ho one, right?
Yeah, the one picking flowers. They had him. Yeah, I think that was it. I think they maybe had another. But it's mainly Trey and Matt speaking, and the others are being dicks and getting drunk. And a cat appears. Trey's cat is there for a little bit, meowing.
From what I recall...
You would love it. You love cats.
Yeah, I know. I listened
to
the
musical that's going to be coming out later this year. You're going to be front row center.
I don't know.
Being like, give me that James Corden cat.
I don't know anything
Rebel
about
Wilson with cat titties? Yes, please.
I don't know anything about the source material, so if I watch that, that's going to be my baseline.
Oh, you don't know about Rum Tug Tugger?
I know the...
You don't know Mr. Mephistopheles? Mephistopheles, whatever it's called?
Mephistopheles?
Yeah.
I know
these famous characters, Bartek.
No. All I know about cats is that it's the one that everyone makes fun of because it's just people in catsuits dancing.
And it sucks. Bartek, anything else you want to discuss about this movie?
Well, seeing as how this isn't the mystery box, so we're not going to give everything away. I think it's just fair to say, you know, these are our thoughts on the film. It's a really good film, and we highly recommend it.
Yes?
I love this film. It's very close to my heart since the first viewing. And obviously, all the extra stuff I read about it just makes it a lot more interesting. And, you know, we've done a podcast where we've done commentary tracks, where commentary tracks in the more traditional sense are people that made the film and know stuff about it, whereas we're just...
not always. Sometimes it's Roger Ebert.
Sometimes, yeah, they get, like, reviewers or whatever.
Yeah, like with the Tommy commentary, they had Mark Commode and the director.
I know.
And Mark Commode's just like, "Why did you put this in?" And he goes, "It's a nice shot." And he's like, "No, it's because you're a weird perv, isn't it?" He's like, "Oh, you got me."
I know that with I Spit on Your Grave, they got what's that actor, the southern actor with like a really southern name.
You gotta give me more. You gotta give me more. Burt Reynolds? I don't know.
No. He's got like 3 names kind of name.
Billy D. Williams. I remember for the Anchorman commentary track, Tom Waits just comes in halfway through and he's not even in the movie. He's like, "Hey guys, it's me, Tom Waits, and I'm here." And I was like, "Why is he here?"
I can't remember his name. He's a southern actor though. Yeah, I really enjoyed this.
If I find out that he's from the north, if he's a Yankee, my Cyclops eye juice is gonna squirt out everywhere.
Well, he was a Union boy.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what I was saying, yeah, when we were doing commentary tracks, we were outsiders. We didn't have people that were, you know, part of the works. The closest we've got, in fact, is with when we did Mystery Box,
Rise and Fall of Baal.
But yeah, it's very interesting when there's a lot of information about the behind the scenes, and that's one of the big merits of this film. There's plenty you can find out about it after you finished watching it. And also, you know, it's the adventure. You feel like you're there because the characters are well defined, and from their start to their end, there is a change in all of them.
And they're filming in the real locations, or all real locations. You know, like sometimes they're the real locations of the historical events, sometimes they're physical locations of cool places in Colorado. I like the fact that they did that. It takes a lot of effort.
It reminded me a lot of the first season of Blackadder, which, even though I acknowledge isn't the best season, it's one of the ones I'm most fond of because it has kind of like
real things. Yeah. So yeah, I'd say it's a recommendation from me too. I mean, obviously, if you listen to this, hopefully you've already watched it. But yeah, it's a great movie. Like, it isn't the greatest, but it's a fun little movie that passes time. It's nice and quick.
Especially for an amateur film.
It's nice and goofy. It has some fun little gore in there, but it's not too offensive. That's the thing too. I will add. Trey and Matt now are known as kind of like the edgy, offensive, in your face.
Yeah.
Here's a guy pooping, here's a guy wanking, crude humor. This isn't as crude as their stuff is later on. It has some things that you go, okay, fudge packer, haha, but like it's more play on words and it's not as gratuitous as some of their stuff. So if you've been turned away by them in that regard, this doesn't follow that. This is more of a tame beast.
If you watch literally the very first scene of the film, that's like the most violent it gets, and that's like a joke kind of thing. Also, right after the credits, the message is this: due to this film's graphical nature, it should not have been watched by children.
At the very end of the movie, that's there. That was actually a really good joke.
Yeah.
The idea of putting the disclaimer there after, like, they shouldn't have watched this.
They put it in literally the furthest place where it should have been.
Should have been.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's a wrap on Cannibal the Musical.
Yes.
Worth checking out. Build a snowman, and your heart is like a baby. Oh, we didn't even. You know what? We got to redeem ourselves. Have a spadoinkle day.
We didn't talk about much spadoinkle at all.
This movie, throughout the whole fucking thing, contains the word spadoinkle. And my fiance and I watched it last night, and all of last night and today we've been saying spadoinkle in conversation.
It's such a great word.
It's a made-up word that was going to be filled in later with a real word because they couldn't figure out. Well, we don't want the word "great" in. That's really boring.
Yeah, the first song of the film.
Like spadoinkle.
The first song of the film is, it's a very optimistic song, very happy. And it's
your typical Roger Hammerstein.
It's we need an adjective that's positive day, and the word that they used to stand in was spadoinkle.
Spadoinkle.
And apparently all of Trey Parker's friends were like, no, that word is amazing, keep it.
Keep it.
And then randomly throughout the film, people would say spadoinkle. Like, there was a part where Trey Parker trips and just goes, oh, spadoinkle.
That was spadoinkle.
I think someone compliments his, that's a very spadoinkle horse, or something like that.
The trappers. So we had to mention spadoinkle before we wrap this up. If I on our old one, we used to give these a rating. I don't think we'll do that probably, but the rating for this, subliminal rating, the contextual rating is it's a spadoinkle.
Definitely spadoinkle.
It's a spadoinkle.
Yes. But this is the first episode of the podcast, and I have to admit, we didn't plan it as much as I thought we would have. So a lot of things are still being worked out, whether we will do ratings or not. But this one definitely deserves a spadoinkle rating.
Spadoinkle! So, Bartek.
Yes.
You chose this movie.
Yes, that's right. At the end of the episode, we talk about what's next, right?
It's my choice for a film. Now, you did something very interesting. You chose a film both of us have seen before.
Yes.
I'm not going to do that. I'm going to choose a film I don't think you have seen. I'm probably
I'm sure that was very tough for you, given my extreme knowledge of many films.
Yeah, it was like, how many Saved by the Bell TV movies can I skip over? Right.
Again, I think there's one that I haven't seen.
How many do I skip over?
Did you pick Hawaiian Style?
Bartek, we want to Saved by the Bell Hawaiian Style. No, Bartek, I'm choosing one of my favorite films.
Go for it. What is it?
Star Trek Into Darkness. No, we're not doing that. No, we're not doing that. Maybe one day if I feel I hate myself enough. But I want to choose a Coen Brothers movie.
Oh, good.
Respected filmmakers.
I should see more of those.
High quality. You should see more of those.
Yeah.
I'm choosing Miller's Crossing.
Okay.
They gangster movie, the old-fashioned 1920s, 30s gangster movie. So, guys, listening people at home, make sure before next episode to, go check out Miller's Crossing. It's got Gabriel Byrne in it. Albert Finney was in it, who's recently passed away. So, it would also be a great way to kind of look at Albert Finney's amazing acting work. It's got John Turturro. It's got a lot of Coen Brothers regulars in there as well. So, you'll see a Steve Buscemi and all these people will be there. It's a real good movie. I hope that you guys enjoyed. I hope Bartek enjoys it.
I hope I do
We'll
too.
discuss it further in the next episode. Yeah, so do check out Miller's Crossing. It's an interesting movie, and it's very fascinating. It's my personal favorite Coen Brothers movie, and it's one of my favorite movies. So I'm picking that. Now, Bartek, we have an email address.
We do.
So that the listening people, if they feel like suggesting films for us to cover in the future, or feel like commenting on what we've had to say, maybe give us some corrections or further comments on stuff that they personally enjoyed about the movie, how can they email us? What is the address?
Yes, you can with this show. I mentioned at the beginning, every 3 weeks. So this was first week, next week, second week. We'll do a listener's choice one, a listening people choice one.
Yeah, you get it right. You fuck.
And please, any way you can contact us with a film, do it. We'll collate it into a list. If you want to just simply email us a recommendation or email us about anything you want, it would be at spitandpolished@gmail.com. That's spit and polish with an ED at the end.
And if you don't care for emails and just social media, we're on Facebook and Twitter.
Yes.
Spit and Polish Presents. You'll find us very easily.
Yes, Twitter is spitpolishpre.
Or you just look it up. You'll find us. So,
we're
yes,
on YouTube. We're
on all the podcast platforming sites available. Give us a rating and review on whatever ones allow it. It very much helps us along with the show. And, of course, spread us around like the disease we are.
You know, I know you've mentioned this to me before, but with iTunes, they've got like that whole regional thing. So if you want to see reviews from different regions, you have to like change it in the URL.
Oh, yeah.
Like 2 weeks ago, for the first time, I got rid of the AU, and I was surprised at how many, like, I think there were American reviews.
I'm on top.
So many, and I was just blown away, and I was really happy.
You know,
for the rest
guys,
of that
do you
day.
want to blow Bartek away?
Even the 3-star one.
Give us a review. Blow him away. Give us a 3-star review that says Bartek needs to speak louder.
Yeah. And that was probably before.
Give us
a
a 3-star review for a movie that was clearly credited as Bubble Boy from the 2000s with the cast and that, and still ding us for it not being the John Travolta one from the fucking 70s. Yeah, ding us! Give us a 3-star review for that. I've been holding that in for a while, but like this 3-star review on iTunes was like, I thought it was this John Travolta Bubble Boy, so I was quite surprised when they were talking about Jake Gyllenhaal and that it was from this year, even though it's clearly mentioned at the very beginning and it's in the information of the podcast.
Well, that wasn't the same one that
and
told
that
me to
movie
speak louder, was it?
Yeah, and the John Travolta movie isn't even called just Bubble Boy, so I don't know. I'm complaining, but do please give us ratings and reviews because we're hungry sluts for those. Bartek, he wants to be blown away.
I'm so sorry that I'm being so open about wanting constructive criticism.
And of course, a part of this show too is I want to also help promo some other podcasts, the ones that we listen to or ones that we support or supportive of us. So also if you are a cool podcast, preferably in the same league as us, awesome.
You got a 3-star review on iTunes?
Oh, especially, we really would appreciate some Australian podcasts too. Email us the promos or email to get in contact with us at the spitandpolished@gmail or find us on the social media and get in contact because, we want to promo other people. I'm going to be, a promo of a podcast will be played in this episode and you should check them out as well, of course.
Let's see, Alex. What do you think of Jaws, which is at 97% Rotten Tomatoes?
I find it to be anti-shark propaganda. What do you feel about the Entourage movie, which is at a meager 33%?
I think they finally got Hollywood right. How about It Follows, 97%?
Worse than your parents giving you the sex is evil talk. How do you feel about Juno, which is at 94%?
That would be a movie that celebrates a teenage homewrecker. How about Bewitched at 25%?
Best television adaptation ever put to film. How do you feel about American Hustle at a towering 93%?
Overwrought awards bait. Righteous Kill, 19%.
The movie that Michael Mann wishes he had made when he created Heat.
Sounds about right. I'm Julio.
I'm Alex, and we are the Contrarians.
As you can tell, our thing is that we rage against the Rotten Tomatoes machine.
Regardless of what we really feel.
Find us on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Stitcher, TuneIn,
Facebook, Twitter, we're everywhere.
We are, very big time, very popular
Yeah.
podcasters, but honestly, when the mics are off, we are just like slobbering sloths.
We got little dicks. That's what's happening.
We need a shower all the time because we're so dirty. We appreciate any contact.
We're filth, and you're the soap.
And just to let you know, Ryan is the one that brought up the dick thing, not me.
Bartek's got a microscopic dick. That's what he really wanted to say. I've got a
Microscopic in relation to Jupiter, but in relation to everything else, it's very big. I can't believe... I was listening to a podcast on the way here that was making fun of people that talk about penises in podcasts.
So Bartek, your penis podcast. Until next time, listening people.